Hey there guys, my name is Tom of MTG Radio, and I'm going to bring you part 3 of our deck building series. This one is at times the most advanced and at times the easiest way to build an EDH deck. I would say that if you're a very advanced EDH player or if you're just an advanced Magic player playing for 10 or more years, this is probably the easiest way to build a deck. If you're just getting into the format, this is probably the hardest way to build a deck. I call it the Power Punch type of building. We're going to start with Teneb the Harvester, and the basic idea is a very basic idea. You just play the strongest cards in the format. Now that might not seem like actual deck building, but in part 4 I'll show you how a Power Punch deck can be different from building from Commander up and building from strategy down. Well, strategy up, Commander down. But first we're just going to build straight in. So we're going to be using Teneb the Harvester, 3 black, green, white for a flying 6/6. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a black. If you do, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You'll notice that I've already toggled both blue and red on our good old big board of MTGO for building our deck. That's going to make sure that we don't have to scroll through blue and red cards and just kind of get confused. I'm also going to click the land slot. That way I don't have to keep running past the lands. It's going to be pretty annoying. So when building a Power Punch deck, you pretty much want to, I'm going to say this again just because I really want to hone it in, you're playing the strongest cards in the format. And what this means is, well, let's start with, I think, the hallmark of this type of building, and that's Tooth and Nail. All those cards that people complain about in Commander forums as being too strong or shouldn't be in the format anymore, those are the cards we're going to be playing. So Tooth and Nail, probably one of the first among them. 5 double green for a rare sorcery. We get to choose one, search our library for 2 creatures and put them into our hand, or put 2 creature cards from our hand onto the battlefield. It's also got Entwined too. You'll notice I'm rarely going to be talking about Teneb here. The reason why is, although he's useful for the deck, he's really just useful. We're not going to be building a deck around him. We're just going to be building a deck that can play him sometimes if it wants to. So we're going to be playing Tooth and Nail. There's a lot of things you can do off of Tooth and Nail. The first thing that comes to mind is, of course, Avengers, Zendikar, and Craterhoof Behemoth. We're going to grab both. I'm going to unclick the My Card selection. That way I can grab all of the cards that I'll be needing here. So Avengers, Zendikar, and Craterhoof Behemoth are the first 2 things that come to mind when playing with Tooth and Nail. It's an easy way to win the game immediately, and a very simplistic way at that. You also notice that I've already got Acidic Slime. Acidic Slime does a great job at his job, which is destroying artifacts and enchantments when it enters the battlefield. So far, we've already got a good start to a Power Punch deck, but let's keep ramping up the power. Why don't we play a card like Pernicious Deed? Pernicious Deed is fantastic in the format just because it allows you to sacrifice it, destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with converted mana cost X or less. Very simplistic card, very good. Now when playing a Power Punch deck, one of the things about it is you want redundancy, and the best way to add redundancy to a deck like this is with tutoring spells. So let's first start it off with a good old Demonic Tutor. The perfect start for a... Ooh, I forgot this is going to pick up... So grab a Demonic Tutor, the perfect start for any sort of Power Punch deck. We can also add an Increasing Vengeance. Increasing Ambition, my bad. Now, Increasing Ambition going to let us also search for more cards from our library. Let's also add in Runescar Demon. Runescar Demon going to give us some more redundancy. I forgot that's going to pull up all of them. There we go. Runescar Demon, a great card from M14, kind of expensive, but going to allow us to search for more cards from our deck. So that's 3 tutors. That might even be a small amount for this type of deck, but this will be okay at this level. Now, when playing a deck like Teneb the Harvester, we can actually give from our own graveyard, so a card that's great in the format and great for this type of deck is going to be Survival of the Fittest. Survival of the Fittest, first of all, get to play this amazing art. Secondly, let's discard a creature card, search your library for a creature, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. You'll notice that I'm doing a lot of these cards off the dome, or sorry about hitting the mic there, off the top of my head. That's because all these cards are just great in Commander, period. That's the entire idea of this deck. Now that we have a good basis, playing cards like Survival of the Fittest and multiple end of the battlefield and leave the battlefield cards, I feel like it's time to add in the Birthing Pod part of this deck. We're going to be playing Birthing Pod, as well as Karmic Guide. That's not how you spell Karmic Guide, of course. Me and spelling things never go together, hand in hand. Revelark. And that should be good right there. So now that we added in both Revelark and Karmic Guide, we brought into this deck another really annoying part about playing against playing against these type of rock decks, which is a lot of graveyard recursion. Karmic Guide Revelark brings that as well. We'll also add in a Genesis. This is a card I'm not a big fan of, except in decks like this, where it can really excel. Genesis, 4 and a green at the beginning of your upkeep. If it's in your graveyard, you may pay 2 and a green. If you do, return to our creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We'll also grab in Scavenging Ooze. Scavenging Ooze is a very expensive card, but amazing in Commander just because of the ability to gain life and constantly get cards out of your opponent's graveyard. Perfect for the type of deck we're building. Again, the Power Punch deck, which is based around playing the strongest cards in Commander at all times, every day, every moment of the hour. Now, looking at our deck as it's currently composed, we have a lot of end of the battlefield, leave the battlefield abilities. We have a lot of stars that interact with the graveyard, Genesis, Survival of the Fittest, both being good parts of that. We'll grab Fauna Shaman as well for, again, more redundancy in a deck that wants redundancy. Fauna Shaman is a creature version of Survival of the Fittest and will be perfect for this type of build. Also, a 2-power creature to get back with Revelark. You'll notice, even though it is a Power Punch type of deck, there's going to be a lot of synergy in this type of build, just because that's kind of what makes these cards so strong in Commander. Seeing about strong Commander, if there's one thing black, green, white does well, it's get more lands into play, and that's what we're going to grab right now. We're going to grab our good old Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, Explosive Vegetation, Boundless Realms. Then we're also going to grab some of these Primordials. I'm thinking we're just going to grab Sylvan Primordial, but I'm fine with also putting Sepulchral Primordial in here and Luminant Primordial right now. Each of these have such a big impact on the multiplayer format that it's very likely that they will end up in the deck. You'll notice we already have amazing amount of 7-drops. This might even increase over time, so we'll let it stay here while we can. But right now, these guys are all going to be good choices. Luminant Primordial are the one that's already on a cutting block, but we still have to put more lands into here. There's one thing about a Power Punch deck is that redundancy is key. You want to make sure that your deck performs the same exact task every single game. Now the problem is that gets pretty boring pretty quickly, especially if you play against it a lot of times. That doesn't make your deck any weaker. In fact, this type of deck is probably one of the strongest decks you can build, and is really scary to go up against just because it plays everything you're scared of. We will also grab... Is that how you spell Gaia? It is. We're going to grab Gaia's Bounty. Oh, sorry, no, we're not. We're going to go Skyshroud Claim. Apologies here. Of course, spelling things a very important part in actually building this type of deck. Skyshroud Claim, 3 and a green. Search your library for the 2 forest cards to put onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. If there's one advantage a Power Punch deck has over the other type of decks in the format, is the fact that you're going to be playing a lot of non-basic lands, and so cards like Skyshroud Claim and Sylvan Primordial are going to be much stronger than they would in other type of builds. They're just, honestly, they're beautiful cards. So as we keep going, we're going to just keep adding in pretty much hallmarks of the format. Stuff like Yavimaya Elder comes to this type of build. Yavimaya Elder is just going to keep getting us more lands. Let's look at Solemn Simulacrum, another card that works great with Revelark and Karmic Guide. Solemn Simulacrum 4 mana puts more lands into play. You know what we need to do? We need to draw cards. Let's play Harmonize. Like, for someone that's experienced with the format like I am, this is a simplistic deck to build. For someone that is uninitiated with the format, this is a very difficult deck to build. I just realized that Aura Shards isn't going to come up immediately when I type this in. Why is Power Punch such a great... why is Power Punch such a strong deck building type? Great question. So you notice we already have 27 cards, and I already feel like our deck's unbeatable. We're playing a lot of the best cards in the format, looking at Demonic Tutor, Great Hope Behemoth, Sylvan Primordial, Tooth and Nail, Avengers Zendikar, Boundless Realms, Karmic Guide, Revelark, Increasing Ambition, multiple ways to find them, multiple ways to deal with artifacts and enchantments. We're playing ways to draw cards. We're playing ways to make sure we have lands in play, survival, Scavenging Ooze. It just keeps going and going and going. And that's really why this deck type is so strong. That being said, it's a pretty boring deck type. Like, I'm building this off the top of my head because I know what this deck is going to look like when we're done with it. There's a lot of cards I obviously haven't put into this deck yet, but still, this type of deck type isn't new. It's not interesting, and it's honestly kind of boring to play with or play against. One of the biggest black marks against the... one of the biggest black marks against the... We're also going to grab an Academy Rector so that we can grab our doubling of mana sources. So the next, the biggest black mark against Power Punch decks is that they're boring. They are honestly boring. They do the same exact thing every single game. They tutor for the same exact thing every single game. They win the game very similarly every single time. When you're experienced with the format, the decks are easy to build. They are the basics of what you're trying to do in the format. Cards like Mirari's Wake allow you to get more mana into play. Cards like Mana Reflection, again, more lands into play, more mana available. I did not, I just typed in that. Mana Reflection. Give me this Mana Reflection. Thank you. So let's see where we're at right now. This is our first 6-drop, and there's more 6-drops to come. We have one way to draw cards. I think we're actually good on lands. We need more ways to draw cards. It's always important. So Solemn Simulacrum is a way to draw extra cards. But we're playing black, green, and white. There's multiple ways to draw extra cards. Let's grab an Phyrexian Arena. We'll also play Underworld Connections. Passive ways to draw cards are very powerful in Commander, simply because they allow you to spend a small amount of resources earlier in the game, and then especially with a deck like this, where every single card is so powerful and impactful when it hits the board, you're able to win the game later on. Now, one of the things that Power Punch decks do that a lot of decks kind of forget is spot removal. Spot removal is still good in the format. It's usually eclipsed by Wraths, which we're going to add to the deck right now with cards like Wrath of God. That's why they're called Wraths, by the way. It's because of Wrath of God. We'll also add in Damnation. We will also... Ooh, pretty. We'll also add in Merciless Eviction. We'll also add in Terminus. We'll also add in Hallowed Burial. So the thing about adding in these type of wraths that put creatures on the bottom of the library, number one, great against commanders. Number two, we're playing a lot of ways to search out our creatures, so they're not going to affect us as much. Speaking of, let's grab a Sylvan Library while it's still fresh in my head. There we go. Sylvan Library comes in. We'll also add in Soul Ring. Sensei's Divining Top. Oh, come on, guys. You're killing me, Smalls. And by Smalls, I mean MTGO. We'll add in Soul Ring. There it is. We'll add in our Artifact Mana now that it's on the top of my mind. Soul Ring. Are we going to add in Signets in a Power Punch deck? We don't really need Signets in a Power Punch deck. I think we actually just want Armor Release here. Oh yeah, I guess if we're going to go... We might as well go full... We might as well go full power. Let's add in Mana Crypt, Mana Vault. Cards that just like almost shouldn't be allowed in this format. Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Soul Ring are a good way to start off any single game. Let's not forget cards like Swords to Plowshares. I'll add in the spot removal now. Swords to Plowshares. Path to Exile. Condemn. That's not how you spell condemn. Vindicate. Mortify. Putrefy. And look, there's step 2 of a Power Punch deck. Your deck is so adept at building more and more card advantage as it goes on that you're actually able to play a lot of spot removal and not really be hurt by it. We're also playing a lot of Wraths at the same point, so don't have to worry about that. Speaking of Wraths, can't forget about one of my favorite cards that should definitely go in this build. Primal Command as well as Austere Command are both perfect for this type of deck. Primal Command lets us find our creatures to put into play, also gain life, maybe put something on top of our opponent's library, or shuffle a library. Austere Command, great at wrathing the board, or wrathing just enchantments or artifacts that could be very annoying. I will also grab a Shieldred. We're looking to play again, a little bit of a more 1v1, a little bit of a more 1-for-1 game. Shieldred is great in any sort of one versus one matchup. Since we're going to be going full Everyone Hates You, let's also add in Sensei's Divining Top as a way to make sure that our opponents want to kill us as soon as possible. This is definitely one of the best ways to do so. Now, looking at the deck, we mentioned that we still probably need a lot more ways to draw to draw cards. We only have 16 creatures. I want to add in just creatures from now on. We'll probably take out either Mortify or Putrefy here. Let's check out the Mortify. We can play a lot of spot removal. Doesn't mean that doesn't still hurt us. We'll add in Farhaven Elf. Now we also need Oracle of Moldiah, of course. No, it's right here. Farhaven Elf, Oracle of Moldiah, and then I think that's enough for lands. Like we've added a lot of ways to get extra lands into play, but getting extra lands into play in this type of deck literally just gives you so many more options to win the game with, and it's very, very, very strong. Something I would heavily suggest, especially in a deck that's to use cards that go 1-for-1 with your opponent. And getting those extra lands into play is a good way to make sure that you're still in the game. Teneb the Harvester is actually a very important part of this deck, even though it looks like he's kind of slapped on. Teneb is such a good late game threat because he's a 6-power flyer. Does a lot of damage even when you start at 40 life, but that reanimation effect on him is very powerful and something that a lot of opponents can't deal with, especially later in the game. Looking at the deck as we have right here, these are all cards I see way too much in the format, which means we're pretty much perfect so far. We can add in a little bit more artifact ramp. Let's add in... what do we want to add in here? Let's just add in Darksteel. Ingot. Alright, there we go. Now, I'm going to keep saying we need ways to draw cards. I think we really want creature ways to draw cards, or at least put lands into play. Yeah, my Elder fits this bill, kind of more Oracle and Moldiah. But we really want cards that interact with the other... that not only interact with the other cards that we have in our deck, but also just can win the game on their own. This deck is a lot about playing a strong threat, your opponent's not having a way to deal with it, then you win. So, Micaiah sounds perfect. Micaiah Unhallowed, 3 triple black for intimidating 5/5. Whenever a human deals damage to you, you destroy it, and other non-human creatures you control +1/+1 and have Undying. A good way to keep a threat on the board and make sure your opponents can overcome it. So looking at our deck right now, we have Birthing Pod, we have Survival of the Fittest, we have 2 drops. We don't have any 1 drops. That means we need a good old Soul Ring Elf. I can't just type in Soul Ring Elf, which is the most annoying part because it's literally just Soul Ring Elf. Its actual name is... no idea. So I'm just going to type in elf and find this thing. So when you don't know the name of a card, which can happen sometimes, MTGO is fantastic at finding it for you, actually. So what I've done here is I've typed in elf into the search bar. Then I've changed the converted mana cost you see at the top to 1. That way I can simply just scroll through all the 1-drop elves and find the one I want, which is Draugr Tree Speaker. Perfect. Get in our deck, Draugr Tree Speaker. We missed you already. And then now to go back into... actual MTGO, we're going to make our mana cost greater than or equal to 0, so we can see everything that's available and keep it going. So I keep saying drawing cards, and we keep not putting cards to draw cards into our deck. What madness is this? Not really madness. We can play Abundance in this type of build. We're not going to play Abundance in this type of build. Who am I kidding? Mind's Eye makes sense. That's not how you spell Mind's Eye. It needs an I in it. Does it have an apostrophe? Of course it has an apostrophe. Mind's Eye will allow us to draw cards during our opponent's turn. Very good card because of it. We already have our Harmonize. We can play... wow. Is there a 3 in Phyrexian? When did that happen? Play for Phyrexian Gargantuan. This is going to draw the end of the battlefield, draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. We could play the 2/2 just as ways to keep going. I like the drawing 2. It's a lot stronger, which is what we're really looking for. Looking at the current state of the deck, I like where we're at. Playing Primal Command, Austere Command. We could play Profane Command. This feels like a Profane Command type of build. I like that we're playing all the Primordials. I love Sepulchral Primordial. I really like Shieldred. I think we are not a Genesis Wave deck. That is a type of card that would be good in this type of build, but since we're putting so many lands into play, even though the card would be great in a later game, we don't have as many permanents as I'd like right now. In fact, I really don't want to add in any sort of spells, so we're going to click both sorcery and instants off of the possibilities. And what I'm going to do here is I'm literally just going to put in draw. So when you're out of options, not really out of options, but just can't really think of what you need like I am right now, I'm just going to put draw. There we go. Bloodgift Demon is perfect for our type of build. It's another Phyrexian Arena type of effect, but on a 5/4 flyer. What we're looking for. Erebos wouldn't be a bad idea. Why haven't I put any Planeswalkers in this deck yet? Good question. We'll definitely play Garruk Primal Hunter. This is the type of card that does multiple things in the deck that we really want to do multiple different things. We would play Gristlebrand if we were able to, but thankfully that card is banned. It was banned immediately. The card is way too strong in the format. When you start, it's already good when you start at 20 life with fetch lands and ways to make your life lower just by using your lands. In this type of format, the card is bonkers. You start at 40 life. There's a good reason that card does not exist anymore. Actually, there's a great reason that card doesn't exist anymore. I'm feeling Mass Admirers. I like Mind Stone. We could play Necropotence in this type of build. We're going to have perfect mana every single time. I feel like it may hurt us more than help us. We can play Palaka Worm, where you might cut it before the deck building video is over. One of the other things about this type of build is that you never want to play a symmetrical effect. Symmetrical effects are the worst. So a card like Size in the Perverter would be good. A card like, we could take the most advantage of the Rites of Flourishing, but we don't want to give our opponents that ability to draw extra cards on us. Again, we want to be 1-for-1ing a large amount of the time, but winning on those 1-for-1s. One of the best ways to do so is to draw more cards than your opponents, which is always a good way to do it. The other way is, I'm just going to put Sword of Fire and Ice right here, because we're definitely going to be playing swords. That way I'll remember to put my equipment into this deck, because we will be playing equipment, because equipment are great. And in fact, we can play a Stoneforge package. We're going to play a Stoneforge Mystic package. That makes the best sense. Oh, look at this art on Underworld Dreams. It's beautiful. Wall of Blossoms is a possible inclusion, especially since we're going to be playing a Reveler Karmic Guide type of build. I don't think it's that important. Yogg's Bargain is banned in this format, so thanks for the idea, but we will not be able to play it. So, okay, let's go for equipment real quick. Equipment is going to be something this deck thrives on. I believe we still have creatures enabled. Good. So when we look at equipment, we can definitely add an equipment package to this type of build. Equipment are very good in Commander. You make really small creatures very good, especially when we're playing a card like Reveler and Karmic Guide. Being able to get back Stoneforge Mystic multiple times and win the game off of it is very fun and a very easy way to win the game. Something I don't mind capitalizing on in a deck that I'm going to call Power Punch, where we just play the most powerful spells in EDH. Cheers. Now, as I scroll through the equipment, I'm basically looking just for a couple. I just don't want to miss anything here. The last thing I want to do is to not play an overplayed equipment. That would be depressing. So definitely want to play Lightning Greaves in a deck that's looking to attack, in a deck that's looking to get an incremental value, but also a deck that's looking to play Teneth the Harvester. Lightning Greaves is perfect. We'll also be playing the other type of boots that give our creatures hexproof, especially in a deck that's looking to play multiple equipment. Giving your creatures Shroud when you're trying to attach equipment onto them is very depressing because it doesn't work when your creature has Shroud. We'll also play sort of Feast and Famine. We won't play sort of Light and Shadow. We're not going to play War and Peace. I'm basically looking for Jite. And oh, where's my other pair of booties? There they are, Swift Boots. Alright, cool. So we have our equipment package, we have our reanimation package, we have our survival package. We're pretty much good. I mean, this is what I'm looking for in a Power Punch type of build, or in a Power Punch type of deck. Just a deck that does the same thing over and over and over. Is it, again, does it sound boring to you yet? Because it's just as boring to play against as it is to build. The reason why I'm showcasing this type of build, especially as a third build, is because it's a common trap that people fall into when they either first try and get into the format, or when they're so far into the format that they can't see their way out. What I mean by that is there's multiple ways to build an EDH deck. We've already talked about the first two, but the reason why this is the third one is because a common, I'm going to call it an issue, but it really isn't an issue, but a common issue that I see in the current state of Commander is a lot of people are building lists that say, oh, staples of Commander. This is what you should be playing in these colors. And they'll give you the top 10 staples in green, the top 10 staples in black, the top 10 staples in white, the top 10 staples in Jund, in Grixis, in 5-color, and all these different colors. And what it leads to is very homogeneous deck design. You find a lot of decks that look exactly the same every single time you play them. And in a format that's made to embrace the chaos, the name of Sheldon Mannery's articles, but that's the truth. It's a format that's made to embrace the chaos, embrace a format where you're playing 99 different cards besides basic lands, so that every single time you play the game is different. The Power Punch deck is a deck that always stays the same. We're playing a lot of ways to tutor cards so that we don't actually have to play a different game every single time. We're playing Survival, we're playing Demonic Tutor, we're playing Stoneforge Mystic. We're playing a lot of the similar cards, a lot of Damnations, a lot of Wraths. We're playing a lot of Tutors, we're playing a lot of cards that do similar things. Every single time you play this deck, it will be exactly the same. Is that a problem? No, it's a very strong strategy. Are you kidding? This deck probably wins at least 8 out of 10 of its games. Like, not even close. What does that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. The reason why those cards are staples is simply because they're the strongest in their field. Is this deck beatable? 100% yes. The previous two strategies I showed, which is both Commander up, strategy down, are decks that can, not easily, but can beat the Power Punch style of building, where all you do is play the best card in the format. The reason why those decks can perform against this type of build as I'm slowly cutting cards because they're a little bit too redundant, is because when you have a strategy where each card is cohesive and works together, you actually create a deck that can beat a deck that's very disparate. A card like Soul of the Harvest doesn't really work with a card like Academy Rector. A card like Academy Rector doesn't really work with Sword of Feast and Famine. Sword of Feast and Famine doesn't really make that much sense with Perfection Gargantuan. Machias is good, but only with Creator of Behemoth and other cards. Like, these cards are very strong, but they're very different. They're good in certain situations. If I have Machias out and I get the Wrath, I laugh at you. If I have Machias out and you wrath me, haha, gotcha. But since the cards don't meld together, they don't gel cohesively in a power punch style of build, a lot of the times you can get awkward hands where, although it does the same exact thing, it does three different things at once. If you get a hand with Umezawa's Jite, Oracle Moldaya, and Sepulchral Primordial, yeah, this hand's great. I would keep this in a second. But is it stronger than a hand that has Jiraga Tree Speaker, Elvish Archdruid, Elvish Champion, and 4 lands? You know, probably not. I'd rather have the Elf hand. I know that deck can win against this type of build. And that's really the one weakness of this type of deck, is that although the deck is playing the strongest cards in the field, it still has a hard time matching up against decks that can turn a 1 mana 1/1 into a 7 mana 7/7 with trample, flying, haste, vigilance, protection from black, and protection from red, and just destroy you with it. And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about the format, is when a deck like this runs into the building and then just gets demolished. We have to make 6 more cuts before we put lands into it, so let's quickly do so. I don't want to cut any more creatures. We're down to 27. That's already a small amount. I feel as though we can cut some of the more redundant things. We need to cut one of these 7 drops. Let's get rid of Palaka Worm. Yeah, let's not cut a creature, of course. Let's cut a creature then. Austere Command. Are we already playing Merciless Eviction or Shards? We're not playing Return to Dust. That's an issue, because we should be. There we go. Oh, right, I took off Fences and Sorceries. That's why that would happen. Here's Return to Dust. What comes out of this current deck? Great question. What does come out of this deck? Jeez. You do nothing. Sorry, 1 second while I cut the rest of our deck so we can get it done. Ooh, we forgot to add in some more Planeswalkers. Alright, so this kind of deck would play Elspeth because it's a singular threat that wins the game. It would play Gideon Jira. It would definitely play Garruk Relentless and the original Garruk. It would play Karn. It would not play either Sorin. It would not play Vraska. It might play Vraska, but not this build will. We're playing too many one-hit wonders. So we're going to play all 3 Garruks, which is kind of hilarious, but they're all just for this type of build. Garruk Relentless in a deck that already wants to be using Survival, perfect. Garruk Wildspeaker in a deck that wants extra lands, perfect. Garruk Primal Speaker in a deck that wants extra lands and wants to draw extra cards, perfect. Elspeth Knight Errant, actually not that perfect. She already hits the bin. I like how I put us back up to 69 while I was trying to cut. Let's also kill a couple of cards. Once again, I really want to avoid hitting any creatures. We're already down to 26, and I don't want to go lower. If we go lower than 26, this deck just won't operate. So let's get rid of... The other problem with playing this type of deck, as I'm kind of showing right now, is that it's super hard to cut cards out of it. Every single thing does the same exact thing. Like, I guess we can cut Primal Command. We don't need to search for that many creatures. We can cut Austere Command now that we have our Aura Shards and Return to Dust. We're good on enchantments and lands, enchantments and artifacts, especially with Acidic Slime. We're still a Birthing Pod deck. We can Birthing Pod from 1 to 7 very easily, and we can utilize a Birthing Pod with cards like Machias and Revelark, of course, as well as Karmic Guide. That's something I don't want to cut. Same with Survival of the Fittest. With a card like Creative Behemoth in our deck, it's really hard to cut either Survival, including Vana Shaman. Scavenging Ooze could probably go, but it is one of our only ways to really interact with our opponent's graveyard, so I don't want to take it out. We will get rid of Sword of Feast and Famine. So we still have 1, 2, 3. Is that it? We need more than 3 equipment if we're going to be running Stoneforge and Stone Hero Giant. Yeah, we'll bring back up the sword. I like to play at least 4 equipment if I'm playing a Sunforger package, a Stoneforge Mystic package. You need at least 4 so that you just don't get screwed over all the time. It's pretty important. So we will play Sword and Feast of Famine still. That way we can still destroy our opponents with our Stoneforge Mystic and Stone Hero Giant respectively. Do we need Gideon in this type of deck? We do not need Gideon. We do need Wake. I still like Mind's Eye. We're probably never going to have a chance to cast Mind's Eye, but it's still going to be very powerful. I do love Revelark. I love a Stone Hero Giant. What comes out? See, for my deck build, like, for me personally, I dislike building these type of decks. I think, again, they're lazy. But, like, if I was actually cutting for a deck I was building, like, these are the next 2 cards that would come out. As a pairing of just being way too strong. Oh, right, Thran Dynamo is the perfect card for this type of deck. Let's add in more cards. Alright, that's it. I'm going to stop adding in the cards that I hate playing. Well, I don't dislike playing these cards. That's a lie. I just, again, I think they're lazy. No offense for people that build these type of decks. The reason why I'm showcasing this type of building is because I do see this type of building running rampant in the current EDH scene. Is how I'm going to place it. Is how I'm going to say it. We'll take a Luminous Primordial. Down to 65. That's 34 lands. That's not enough. We need to cut at least 3 more cards. So 3 more cards to go. What are the 3 cards that leave? If we're playing Skyshroud Claim, we don't need to play Explosive. If we're playing Boundless Realms, we do need to still play Mana Reflection and Mirari's Wake. The reason why I took out Skull Clamp is because we are playing cards like Mirari's Wake. We still need Solemn. We probably don't need Dynamo, but this is the type of deck that would play Dynamo, so I'm not going to take it out. Also the type of deck to play all these cards. So these are safe. Like, I'm not touching these. I know that for a fact. These are the perfect type of cards for this type of build. Swiftfoot Boots, again, equipment. Our equipment package doesn't go. Our survivals don't leave. I'm doing some math in my head to make sure we have everything we need. We need ways to draw cards. We can't lose those. So drawing extra cards, I'll actually put these type of spells in there. Gargantuan, Increasing Ambition, Mind's Eye, Birthing Pod, Solemn? No. Harmonize. We may be losing Wild Speaker. We may be losing... Okay, what does Rector get? This is a good question. What does Academy Rector get when it dies? It's good off of Birthing Pod. It's amazing off of Birthing Pod. Who am I kidding? It grabs us Mana Reflection. It grabs us Ferrari's Wake. It grabs us Survival. It grabs us... Yeah, you make the cut, my friend. You make the cut. Yavi Elder stays. So does Farhaven Elf. So does Deed. So does Aura Shard. So does Vindicate. So do all of these. We may be losing Darkseal Ingot. Dynamo stays. Maybe stays. Need creatures. Oh, this is getting difficult. What's going on here? Right, how many cards are we cutting? Alright, Ingot leaves. We definitely need Tooth and Nail because that's the poster board for these type of builds. So this is 63 cards. That's 36 lands. 1 card has to go. If we're keeping creatures... Goodbye, Garrick. Alright, and then we can build a land base. Alright, so the land base for these type of builds are also kind of simplistic. The first thing we're going to do is add in all of the original Urza's lands. All the original Alpha lands. So for this, that would be Bayou. Scrubland. And everyone's favorite Plains Forest Temple Garden. Nah, I'm just playing with you, but also got Temple Garden right now. Savannah is, of course, what I'm talking about. Grab the Savannah. Alright, so now that we have all of our original duels in, let's add in the Salt, which actually we can just start playing our shocks. So Temple Garden, Overgrown Tomb. There's actually a couple of sites that can help you with building a mana base, which is pretty awesome. You can actually just literally search up EDH mana bases and find the first one. I don't know their URLs off the top of my head, or else I would let you know them right now, but I apologize. In fact, let's look at the temples. I think these cards are amazing in EDH, and so I want to add in at least our Temple of Silence. We don't have our black-green temple yet, but once we do, it would go in. Apologies. So let's add in our fetch lands. So the cool part about fetch lands in this type of deck is that they're amazing. Like all that. Of course, the cool part about them is that they're amazing. It's not incorrect either. We're going to play our on-color fetches. I don't like playing off-color fetches in these type of builds. Even though they can get our lands when we need them, a lot of the times they end up being less than appetizing. We will be playing Bojuka Bog in this type of deck. The cool part about this build, the cool part about the Power Punch deck is that your mana is perfect. Like, it's just absolutely perfect every single time you make it. And that's really one of the best parts about playing those powerful cards. You also get to play the most powerful lands. The sad part is this mana base is going to be expensive. We're not talking $20. We're not talking $40. We're not talking $100. The mana base for these type of decks can go up to the 200s, maybe even $300, simplistically. Like, even just playing the 3 original dual lands, you're already out money. Like, nice paycheck you had there. Buy yourself some original duels, and you're done. Like, there's your paycheck. Congratulations. One of the things about this type of build is that it is very expensive. They're the strongest cards in the format. They are in demand. There is not a doubt about that. A lot of these cards are still in standard because some of the most powerful cards are being printed in standard. Right now, I'm just slowly going through all the cards, all the lands that we have online. We will add in the check the check duels, both from M14 and from Dark Ascension. These are going to be a good way to make sure that our land is as perfect as possible. We're going to be playing a lot of color-intensive cards in this type of build, so we really want to make sure we can really take advantage of it. Library of Alexandria is banned in the format. Maze of Ith is not, so Maze of Ith can come into the deck. We will be playing a lot of multicolored lands, Murmuring Bosk, one of the top among them. We will also be playing everyone's favorite card, Mosswarp Bridge. Is perfect in this type of build. We have a lot of big creatures. We're going to be taking advantage of them, getting extra cards off of it. It's exactly what we want to do. I don't want to play Opal Palace. I really think this is just a little bit better Shimmering Grotto and does not deserve an inclusion in this type of build. To be frank, it's okay, and barely okay at that. We do want to add in cards like Reflecting Pool. I don't know if we want Phyrexian Tower, but we're going to put it over here. We are playing a deck that mildly interacts with the graveyard, so that is the type of deck that Phyrexian Tower is good in. As we continue to scroll down very slowly at a snail's pace, we're almost through all of the lands that we have in MTGO here, or that we have really in real life. We aren't really missing any cards from MTGO. Compared to real life. I'm not going to be playing either the crew lands or the gates, to be perfectly honest. Our mana base is better than that. That's kind of the other haughty stuff I don't like about this type of deck. It's like, oh yeah, my deck's too good to play that card. It's like, get out of here, come on. What are you doing with your life? We'll play Stirring Wildwood. I like this deck. I like this card against decks that try and go aggressive with flyers, which is what the card is intended to do. We're not going to be playing Strip Mine because we don't have any way to recur lands. If we wanted to build a loan for the engine into this deck, which is something you can do, but we decided not to do, that would be very effective. But we decided not to do that. A loam engine could have gone in instead of Stoneforge Mystic if we wanted to go for a purely reanimation route. But I feel like that would step away from the Power Punch style of deck and really focus on a strategy, which is something this deck does not do. This deck does not focus on strategy. It focuses on the strongest cards in the format in these colors. That is the idea behind it. That is what it unequivocally does compared to every other color, and that is the scary part about it. Are we playing enough non-basics yet? I think we are. You have to play enough non-basics to where if your opponent plays Ruination, you automatically lose the game. Good. We're playing 25 non-basics. That's the amount that I expect this deck to play every single time. To do our lands, we're going to hit the stats button. Looks like we're playing a lot of green and a little bit, about half as much black and white. Because of that, let's go to our lands. We are going to go to My Cards so that we can grab some beautiful Zendikars. Alright, so let's first grab the forest. We only have enough slots for 12, so we can go 6, 3, and 3. That makes sense. So we'll add in 6 of these. We'll add in 3 plains and 3 swamps and call it a day. Now this is probably going to be our quickest deck building video, so that's just the nature of this type of deck building. The reason why you want to make sure you play basics, and it's very important, is because you are playing cards like Kadama's Reach and Yavi Elder. You don't want to play so many non-basics that you can't search. You never want to fail to find, especially if you're playing Boundless Realms. In fact, we're going to be taking out a lot of our non-basics because we are playing cards like Boundless Realms, so we don't screw ourselves over. It's that simple. we're going to take out the filters. So I want to add in at least one more swamp, one more plains, and two more forests, and then take out that many lands. That way, once again, we can never fail to find. Failing to find off of Boundless Realms is the worst feeling. I dislike it a lot. I think anyone would dislike it a lot. So we have to take out 4 non-basics. Makes a lot of sense. Well, doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's something we have to do. I like our fetches. They grab our non-basics. We could take out the check lands. I think taking out the check lands would be better than taking out the filters. So we'll take out our Isolated Chapel. We will take out where is this thing? Our Woodland Cemetery. And we'll take out our Sun Petal Grove. And we will also take out, let's save you some money. We'll take out Fetid Heath just for you guys. There we go. So that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 basics. 16 basics with Boundless Realms, Cultivate, K-Reach, Yavi Elder, Farhaven Elf. Not Skystroke Claim, because again, we can get non-basics. Okay, with just these 5 cards, good. You will always hit with these 5 cards at 16 basics, and that's it. That's the deck. Now, I do want to go over a little bit more. I may have had a little bit of a condescending tone going over this deck, so I just want to talk about this type of build really quickly. Power Punch is a legitimate way to build a deck. Again, the idea is to play the strongest cards in the format. You build the strongest deck you can, simply based off of the staples of the format. Silver Primordial, Crider Hoof Behemoth, Tooth and Nail, Mind's Eye, Hollow Burial, Thran Dynamo, Mana Vault, Sensei's Top, Soul Ring. All these cards are commonly the number 1 through 5 best cards in these colors, like undoubtedly, or colorless. Because of that, building these type of decks can either be very easy or very difficult. If you're new to the format, building these type of decks is actually very difficult. You don't know what really works in Commander yet. A lot of cards like Karmic Guide may slip through the cracks because you don't really get that they're this powerful. If you're going to be building this type of deck on your own, the easiest way to build these type of decks is to just look up a list of staples. They exist in multiple different places. You could go to the Reddit forum of EDH. There's a list of staples on the right. Just pick from your color, build your deck, you're done. It's probably the quickest way to build an EDH deck, and you'll probably have a deck that wins 7 out of 10 games. Now, if you want to have a lot of fun in this format, I would not suggest this type of deck building. This is from personal experience from someone who's played these decks multiple times, and played against these type of decks multiple times. Even though you get to do the strongest things in the format every single game, the thing is they are very repetitive. You are doing the strongest things in the format every single game, but they're the same things in the format every single game. You are always tutoring a Stoneforge Mystic to find a Sword of Fire and Ice to attack multiple times. You're always tutoring a Stone Hero Giant to find a Sword of Fire and Ice to attack multiple times. Using cards like Fauna Shaman and Survival of the Fittest to find the same exact creatures to win the same exact way every single time. You're using your Wrath effects very well, you're using your creatures very well, and overall you're playing a real game of Magic, but in a format that's made to increase the chaos and the random part of this fantastic game that we have here, given to us by Richard Garfield. This is a deck that kind of bumps that trend. This is a deck that looks to be as repetitive and as singular-minded as possible. Is that a bad thing? No, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's an easy thing, though. This type of deck, there isn't a list in front of me. I have a solid desk, I have a cup of coffee, and I have a cup of water. That's it. This was all built just from the decks I'm used to playing against, and I think it's a very good representation. We may have missed a couple of cards here or there. I think we hit most of the casual ones, even though there's even some cards that I think we should have found replacements for. Mass Admirers, Phyrexian Gargantuan, even Stone Hero Giant are cards that I don't see in these type of lists. I know there's a card I'm missing from our Karmic Guide Revelar combo. I forget her name, but it's a legend from Time Spiral. In fact, we'll just find her right now. That way I don't have to hear about her. So what I'm going to do, now once again I'm going to use the great interface from Magic the Gathering Online to find my legend. So I type in legend, I click only the green and white here, and it's Safi Eriksdotter. Safi Eriksdotter for green and white. When target creature is put into your grave from the battlefield this turn, return that card to the battlefield. You know what, we'll also play Deranged Hermit in this deck. Deranged Hermit again ups the creature count, but it is also amazing with Safi, Revelark, and Karmic Guide. I like how I just had a horrible time cutting cards, but we should obviously add in 2 more. If we're going to be adding in these 2 cards, let's take out the cards I mentioned before. We'll take off Phyrexian Gargantuan, we'll take off Stone Hero Giant. We'll only play Stoneforge Mystic for equipment package, but the equipment package is just as strong. So some last minute additions, last minute cuts, but the deck is exactly what it was before. You notice we put in 2 cards, nothing changed. Not a single thing changed. It does the same exact thing every single time. Again, I'm sorry if I come off as condescending for this type of deck build. I just dislike it. I think it's lazy. That being said, I say that a lot, but that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to be it for this deck build. I'll post the deck list in the comments. If you find that you've played against this deck a million times, just like I have, I'm glad I did my job perfectly, because that's what this deck is for. Once again, this is probably the hardest type of deck building if you're a beginner to the format. If you've been in the format for a long time, this is probably the easiest type of deck building. In fact, while I was building this deck, you were probably yelling cards at the screen because you're like, yeah, why aren't you playing XYZ? In fact, this Genesis should be a Seedborn Muse, of course, because that's how this deck works. There we go. Perfect. All right, I think we got there. That's about everything I'm looking for in this. Oh, yeah, perfect. That's disgusting. God, when did this deck lose? This is one of the strongest ways to build a deck. This deck is very, very, very good. Again, it probably wins 8 out of 10 times. The only thing it's weak to are really good tribal decks and decks that can actually interact with it very well. This is the type of deck that doesn't like playing against multiple counterspells and ways to actually destroy the graveyard. But Tooth and Nail wins the game on its own. So you can just tutor for it with your Demonic Tutor, your Increasing Ambition, or just draw to it with your multiple other spells. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Our last part in the deck building series is going to show how each of these deck building types differ from each other, because I feel like video by video I don't really give a good explanation of the difference between strategy up and commander down. I really want to show how those deck buildings strategies really are obviously different from each other. And then as well as something I'm going to be calling deck seeding. One of the other questions I get a lot is, I want to build a new EDH deck, I don't know where to start. How do I build a new EDH deck? Or how do I get that spark to build a new EDH deck? A lot of people came into this format thinking, man, I really want to play with Teneb, or man, I really love Seedborn Muse or Revelark, and I want to build a deck based around it. And they kind of get stuck. They've built that deck. What do I want to do next? I'm tired of building my Revelark deck that wins all the time. Let's try something new, and they don't know where to go from that. So the next video we'll not only talk about the differences between 3 decks that are built with the same general, but show the different types of deck building and how they interact with each other. But we'll also give you a little bit of deck seeding, a little bit of new ways to go in the format that you may not have originally thought of, which will be really cool, especially for the more experienced players who are kind of tired and just annoyed with the format to the point where they're just kind of like not done with it, but they have like 20 decks sitting around. They're like, what do I have left to do? And I'll be happy to guide you on the route to show you what else there is in Commander. So, thank you so much for tuning in once again. Oh man, this mic is way too loud. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I really do appreciate you guys stopping by to watch. You can find me, I stream at twitch.tv/npgradio, and I post videos here. This is, again, just part 3 and a part 4 of deck building, so I really hope you enjoyed them. If you have any critiques or comments, please feel free to put a comment on the video, or you can just send me a message in one of the many ways to do so. Thank you so much for stopping by. It was great to have you. I'm sorry if this felt a little bit scatterbrained, but again, there isn't a list in front of me. This is lottery tickets. This is just what I'm used to facing. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope thanks for tuning in. There we go.